Hey guys, the rise of the mech meta is starting to settle a little bit. I'm sure there will still be some surprises on the way, but there are already some kind of new decks that are on the ladder that are great to climb with right now. So let's talk about them.
Hey, buddy, watch this.
Yeah, so there are actually a couple real new decks and a few decks that kind of old but maybe have a couple buffed cards or snip snap dropped into them, but in any case they're a little different than they were pre-rise of the mech. And if you're looking for a deck to play on the ladder this season, these look like a fun new way to do it. Now, they're not going to always be the tippity top tier 1 deck, and there might be some changes throughout the month as people figure out new stuff and it settles a little farther in the meta. But nonetheless, right now, these are showing good win rates on hsreplay.net. They're based around some of the new or buffed cards, and therefore, I think they're pretty good to climb with at the moment. That said, let's walk through these decks. Up first here, I have a deck that utilizes the new buffed Luna's Pocket Galaxy. It dropped to 5 mana, and there are a handful of lists popping up that look a little bit like this with some kind of Luna's action. This is the one I've seen finding the most success and currently has the highest win rate on hsreplay.net, and it runs this late game package of Geppetto Joybuzz, Alexstrasza, Calicos, and Archmage Antonidas, which, as you can imagine, those are pretty sick cards to get reduced to 1 mana, because you can set up some pretty crazy late game combos where you're like Alexstraszaing and Antonidasing in a single turn, so on and so forth. You've also got Geppetto Joybuzz in there, so whether you reduce him to 1 or he just reduces other cards to 1, still a really impactful thing. Now, there is still also the Mountain Giant Conjurer's Calling Astromancer kind of package in this deck, but it's complemented with, first off, that Luna's package, but also things like Fireballs and Frostbolt. So this plays almost in a way like kind of an old Freeze Mage, and in fact, right now, HS Replay is classifying this deck as Freeze Mage. I don't know if we're going to call it that. I'd call it like Pocket Mage, personally, if I was going to name it myself. But it's a Conjurer's Calling, Luna's Pocket Galaxy, Freeze Mage hybrid that's very defensive in the early game with that Doomsayer Frost Nova package, and Rays of Frost to stall, lots of card draw, and then you just, boom, go nuts in the late game with obviously some really big, scary stuff that is potentially reduced down to 1 mana. And right now, this deck is working really well, and some pros have reported success with it, has a good overall win rate across the board on hsreplay.net. So this may indeed be a big part of the meta moving forward, which I don't know if I'm thrilled about. I don't love playing against Frost Nova, Doomsayer shenanigans all that much, but I think it's probably going to be a fun deck to play. And I am really glad to see that Luna's Pocket Galaxy, with that big time cost reduction, is impactful right now. Moving on here, we have another, I guess, new deck of the newish decks in this video. There's going to be a few that are way less new than this. And this is another one that's being built a few different ways right now, but this is currently the highest win rate way to play a Thunderhead Stormbringer Shaman on hsreplay.net. So you might find some other lists out there that are also running Thunderheads and Stormbringers. I've seen a lot with a bigger overload package, things like Unbound Elemental, for instance. This one shifts more towards kind of a Murloc / token package. You've got like Microtech controller in there. You've got that early Tidecaller, Slurper, Toxfin, Murloc stuff going on as well. Soul of the Murloc, Underbelly Angler. So this kind of is a fusing of Murloc Shaman with Thunderhead Stormbringer token Shaman stuff. And I don't know exactly what you'd call this. You could still theoretically call it Murloc Shaman, but I think maybe like Stormbringer Shaman or Token Shaman is really a more appropriate title. But at the end of the day, if you look at this deck, obviously it's about getting a wide board that sticks and then utilizing things like Bloodlust and Stormbringers to follow up on that. You've got Spirit of the Frog as a package in here too, so you can more consistently hit those big spells. And in fact, you can chain all the way up to Stormbringer, right? You've got 0 mana, 1 mana, 2 mana, 3 mana, 4 mana, 5 mana, 6 mana spells. So it's like a perfect chain to get you to all your big, heavy finisher style stuff, which if you run out of cards, which is always possible with decks with low curve minions like this, it just refills your hand and you can go again. So I haven't played this list yet, and I'm not exactly sure how it feels, but the data supports it working well. I can certainly understand why a package like this makes a lot of sense. The new buff Thunderhead's amazing. Stormbringer fitting into that curve really nicely is cool too. So it seems like an incredibly viable deck moving forward, and I'm sure it's going to be at least one of the best ways to play Shaman right now. So now let's take a look at a list that's not really so new. I mean, this is pretty much the same kind of mech token druid that existed in the past, but it just has Snip Snap thrown in there. I think this list has been shifted a little bit to fit the Snip Snap world, but this is pretty close to the list I put in another video already on my day one Snip Snap deck, so this might look pretty familiar. And it's working really well. I played it a lot. It's winning games. Snip Snap is like the dream mech token druid card. He's absolutely perfect because sometimes you love the magnetic to just go tall against decks that can't handle that. And other times just having a 3-bodied minion, because on turn 9, right, you can play 3 Snip Snaps that all give you death rattle tokens, is like almost having an all-in-one kind of big board summon built in with a Soul of the Forest, right? It's a really sticky scenario that means you get all kinds of follow-up buffs too. So absolute dream at all parts of the curve is Snip Snap, and when you have a mech package already there, he just lines up incredibly well, and this deck was already good. It's a staple of the meta so far in Rise of Shadows, and I think this version will become the prominent version just because Snip Snap is so freaking strong. There are still some other lists out there that run Snip Snap with, like, you know, the same Wisp stuff that you saw in the non-mech version of Token Druid. I think that's fine just because, again, he is really good on his own regardless of anything else. But I think this one might get the edge. We'll see. Currently, it has the higher win rate right now in HS Replay. That might just be because it's kind of new and fresh and people are trying it out. But keep an eye on it, and certainly it's going to be a solid deck no matter what in this meta, so you really can't go wrong playing this one. It's quite strong. So now let's move on to another new list. Now, I think this is a little more new because you do have 2 significantly buffed cards in this deck with Crystology and Glowstone Technician. You've also got Snip Snap in there. So although people were already playing this style of Mech Paladin, certainly this one feels significantly updated with, you know, 10% of the deck seeing changes in the rise of the mech era. And there's no surprises on this one, right? It works exactly like you think. It is just a hyper on-curve, mid-rangey paladin that plays big mechs. It magnetizes bigger mechs on top of those big mechs, and it just stacks to the moon with giant mechs, and then resummons them all with Kangor's Endless Army at some point. Now, a lot of people criticized me for putting Snip Snap in a Kangor's Endless Army deck, but it turns out all of the prominent lists I've seen so far do include Snip Snap in a Kangor's deck. I've even seen some pros also defending Snip Snap's usage in a Kangor's Endless Army deck. Now, will that prove to be the final state of these kinds of decks? I don't know, but for now it's a little baby. I told you so. I still think it's worth it. The downside, the risk of 2 legendary cards counter-synergizing is not worth sacrificing the upside of an incredibly strong card like Snip Snap, which otherwise fits this deck perfectly. Now, cheaper Glowstone Technician does feel really good in this list, I have to admit. I didn't think that 1 mana would make it feel significantly better, but it does feel pretty good to play on turn 5. Crystology is obviously good. It was already good. I don't know that it's that much stronger for 1 mana. Like, yes, it's clearly an amazing card. It was already a good card. I guess it fits because it's just easier to float. It's a good turn 1 option if you don't hit your Glowtrons or whatever. So, sure, it's good too. And all that means is this deck just got stronger, just got better. This is a list that runs like an Eldor Peacekeeper specifically. There are variations, of course, out there. This was currently the highest win rate list on HS Replay. Find one you like that has cards that you enjoy. Coppertail Imposters in here too, which is a little strange perhaps, but nonetheless, it's working well for some reason because that's what the data says. But keep an eye out for a list like this one because clearly this package was already good and got even better. And then finally here, another totally new list. Nobody ever played this one before. None of us saw Mech Hunter until just now. But this is Mech Hunter as you know it, and probably hate it. One of the best decks in the Rise of Shadows meta so far. One of the most popular decks in the Rise of Shadows meta. And of course, Snip Snap just fits incredibly well into this package. It's like exactly what this deck likes to do. Perfect play on turn 3. Perfect play on turn 9 when you're otherwise running out of gas. Perfect play on turn 6. You just can't go wrong with Snip Snap. It's perfect for this list. And it was already a tier 1 list, and Snip Snap made it better. So yeah, this is a strong list. There are, of course, little packages you can tech in and tech out of this thing, but Snip Snap has got to go in this list now. It's just too good, and the deck is too good, so I don't have much to say on this one. Everybody knows it already. If you want to win games in the ladder, absolutely play a Snip Snap Mech Hunter, because you're going to win games on the ladder. And there you go, folks. That wraps it up for the 5 new decks. I know only 2 of them are really new. The other 3 are kind of old with new stuff. You just got to deal with it, okay? Maybe it's clickbait. I don't know. I think they're new enough to talk about at the very least. But these are decks utilizing the new stuff that are rather powerful right now. And I don't really know if there's anything else popping up. Oh, I should talk about Pogo Rogue. Everybody's going to say, where's your Pogo Rogue on this list, Regis? Pogo Rogue doesn't have a good enough win rate right now. I don't think it's actually good enough to climb. HS Replay is pointing me towards the fact that it's probably rather weak and rather slow. Now, I've played it. We won some games. There are pros out there who've succeeded with it at higher legend ranks. But across the board, right now, at multiple wider ranks in a bigger population, it's just not working that well. So Pogo Rogue didn't make the cut for this video. Like, yeah, it's a new deck, but I can't in good conscience right now recommend that you ladder with it. Is it going to get better? Maybe somebody will find the perfect list and it'll get there, but right now, I can't do it. It's just not good enough. I would love for it to be good enough. Don't get me wrong. I like cool new decks. Pogo Rogue could be a cool new deck. For now, it's just not on the list. I'm sorry. If you want to play Pogo Rogue, go find a list. They're out there. All that said, if you guys have any other decks you've spotted you think are amazing that didn't make the cut here, please feel free to share those in the comments below, including your Unicorn Pogo Rogue list. I welcome it. But until then, thank you so very much for watching. And until next time, game on.